the double. Get it! Oh! Alright, what is going on, everybody? My name is Austin Trotter. Here we are smoking a 13-pound whole packer brisket. Probably turn out to be about 12 pounds after we get done trimming it down and everything. Just wanted to kind of give you the rundown on everything. So what we have here, like I said, 13-pound whole packer brisket. Very, very big piece of meat. Love smoking this. We're going to be smoking it on the 500 Series Z grill, pellet fed. And yeah, so let's get started. What we need to do here, make sure that whatever chunks of fat are on here, make sure they are less than a quarter inch, or about a quarter inch. Quarter inch will give it enough time in the grill to render into the meat, which will give you that good smoky flavor. Any more than a quarter inch, it won't render as well, and you'll end up with a piece of meat that just is full of fat. So we're gonna go ahead and start trimming it down. On this top half, what I like to personally do is just take off most of the fat because I cook it a different way than most people do. However, you can choose to leave as much fat on here as you want. There's a lot of fat on this. See, so we got right here, we got about a quarter inch of fat that I just took off. As you can see, that's all fat that would not render into the meat. So what I like to personally do on this top, just discard it all. We'll definitely have enough on the bottom to where it will render in, so there's no need to have extra fat. It is tastier, however it is less healthy. All right, now we're gonna just flip it around, get the bottom half of it, and this is where your fat cap is gonna be. This is definitely the piece that you want to have around a quarter inch of fat on it. Like I said, any more than that, the fat's not gonna render, and then you're just gonna have a big chunk of fat. So as we can see right here, that's a good solid inch and a half. We're gonna trim that down. Okay, so it looks like we got about an inch to an inch and a quarter on this outside edge right here. We're going to start on this edge, work our way towards the tip. So it's always nice to have a long brisket knife. I have a 14-inch Mercer knife. Got it off of Amazon. It's like 25, 30 bucks if that. But it really comes in handy when dealing with briskets. It's really nice to have because the briskets are normally a longer cut of meat, so you need a longer knife to cut your meat. If you don't want to do this step and you would like to skip it, sometimes you can talk your whoever's supplying your meat, your butcher, King Soopers, Sam's Club, Costco, whatever the case may be. You can talk them into just cutting up the meat for you, and they'll repackage it. See? So that's all fat that just is not going to render down, like I said. I'm going to get rid of all of this. Yeah, another slice in the trash. All right. So we're getting close. Getting close to the end here. What I also like to do is I like to trim just these pieces off. I feel like if your meat looks good, it's going to be more delicious. If you got just meat strung out everywhere and you got, you know, a bunch of tendons laying all over the place, it's going to look less appetizing. So we're just going to cut this off. Alright, so, and you can also kind of feel in the meat where your areas are that are a little bit thinner in fat. So like about right here, it's about a 1/4 inch. Over on this side, it gets a lot harder. We still have quite a bit to go in here. You'll pick this up as you go along, the more pieces of meat that you do trim. It's kind of like touching a steak and feeling the firmness and figuring out how done it is by that. It just comes with time. Again, we're just cutting this off because I personally don't like the way it looks. It's all personal decisions. Okay, so it looks like we're getting pretty close. Again, you can kind of see what I got going on here. Got about a 1/4 inch all through here. It's a little thicker, but it's around the 1/4 inch mark that we're trying to hit. Okay, everything is looking good. We got our fat cap trimmed down. Oh, missed a little piece. Okay, so now that we got all of the fat cut off of it, like I said, we're just gonna turn it around, make sure there is a little bit of fat obviously on the top. I'm not gonna cut all of this off. It will render down. We won't have any issues with that. I do have kind of a darker end here. I'm just gonna cut it off. Like I said, I like looking at meat and it looking appetizing. So I don't mind cutting off the little pieces like this so that we just have the juicy red meat all the way around. So with all meat cutting, what I like to do is I like to have a little glass of whiskey, glass of bourbon, you know, whatever kind of glass you would like. Today I chose to have a glass of proper 12. With mine, it just makes everything seem just that much better. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is we're gonna season it, get a nice good rub on it. What we're using today is the Pit Boss Pro Series Prime Beef and Brisket Rub. I have not personally tried this one yet. I just found it while I was shopping at Lowe's the other day. And the smell, oh man, the smell is really, really good. Looked at the ingredients in here: salt, sugar, garlic, onion powder, paprika, natural mesquite smoke flavor, dried. Let's see how it is. So what we're gonna do when we go to season it is season it very heavily. This is obviously a big piece of meat. You want it from tip to the other tip, completely covered all the way around. Make sure that you season it. Don't just try and lightly spread it around and get the most out of little. With briskets and bigger pieces of meat, it is not a bad thing to have a little bit of extra seasoning on it. Alright, so there's the top half. What we're going to do is just kind of press it in there. You can rub it in there. I press and just kind of spread all of the veins and everything out. I call it veins of meat, but I like to press it in there. I just feel like rubbing it I feel like rubbing it wastes the seasoning, but I could be wrong. This is all personal preference. Okay, now that we got the top half, we're going to flip it around. Onto our fat cap. And we're going to do the same thing. Season it very heavily. And definitely don't be skimpy with it. Alright, we'll press it in. Make sure that it gets all up in there. Okay, now we're just left with this, and this to season. Best way to do it with the bigger chunks of meat, you're just going to hold it on one side, try and balance it. You need to spin it around and curl it so it balances itself. That's kind of the way to do it. But make sure that you cover every square inch of your brisket. Okay, here's that. And for these little areas, I just like applying it by hand. All right, now we're back at square one. We're to the top of the brisket. What I personally like to do is after I've done the whole brisket, just add one more coat to this and then we're done. Alright, now that we got the top half finished up, what we're going to do is we're going to pull off our gloves. We're just going to put the whole thing into the fridge for right now, just so that it has time for the seasonings to really sit and sink into the meat and the flavoring. What I normally like to do is I like to leave it in there for about 2 to 3 hours. If you're crunched on time, you really need to get this thing on the grill right now. It's not a bad idea just to let it sit for at least 30 minutes. Okay, so as I said, we're gonna take our meat, got our full brisket here. We're just gonna set it into the fridge for right now, so I can just sit here and let everything soak right in. Perfect. Okay, so 450 now. We'll check back in here in a little bit once this is ready to go on the grill, and we'll get everything rolling. Okay, here we got our Z grill, our 500 series. Today what we're going to be using for chips, or pellets, I'm sorry, is going to be the Cabela's cherry barbecue wood pellets. I really enjoy the Cabela's brand just because they're a really good flavor. However, they are on the least expensive side. For a 10-pound bag, or a 20-pound bag, you get them for 10 bucks. Can't beat that. So, we'll get our barbecue stocked up. Now what we got to do is open it up, turn it on to the smoke setting. And we just want to let the smoke start to let the pellets go into the fire pot, start smoking, get a fire going, and then after that we will close the lid, let it preheat, and we'll toss the meat on there. Alright, so we got our grill preheated. We're sitting at about 184 right now. This is just on the smoke setting on the Z grill here. What we're gonna do now is we're just gonna take our brisket. We're gonna set it on there, uncovered, unwrapped, no probes, nothing. We're just gonna smoke it for 8 hours. That's it. Just smoke it, and then once we get that done, we're gonna pull the brisket off. We're gonna wrap it in butcher paper, tuck it under real nice, get it nice and tight. We're gonna throw it back on. So for right now, let's get this back on. Okay. The brisket is on. One thing I did want to point out and mention is that I always put the thicker end towards the, I should say the right side where the fire comes off into, or where the stack is normally where I put it. That's just where it tends to be a little bit hotter, is what I've noticed on this grill. Your guys' grill may vary, but this is just what I found. So we're gonna close this. We're gonna wait 8 hours, and we'll come back to it early morning. Okay, so it's been about 8 hours. It's been on our smoke setting, which normally our smoke setting here stays around 180 to 160. It has been really cold. It snowed all night. So we're gonna open this up, and yeah, if you touch onto the top, you can feel the nice bark that's on there. That's exactly what I like to see, is a hard outer shell, more or less. That's also why I like doing it in butcher paper rather than foil once I wrap it. Butcher paper that we're using today is the Traeger pink butcher paper. Picked this up at Jack's. Kind of expensive, but there is also 150 foot. So let's we're gonna take this out, wrap it up. We're gonna put it fat cap up so that once that fat starts to render down, it'll render down in the meat. And then we're gonna bump up the heat to 225 and go low and slow until this thing hits approximately 201 degrees. Okay, so now we got our brisket wrapped up in the butcher paper. Our grill is getting heated up to 225, and now it's time to put it back on the grill. We're gonna wait probably another 6 to 8 hours and let it smoke and cook and do its thing. So our brisket is now at about 201 degrees, which is about where we want it. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pull the probe out of it. We're going to take the whole thing, we're going to set it in the cooler for 2 hours and let it rest for 2 hours. What that does is it just gives it the rest of the time to kind of soak in, keep all of its juices and whatnot, and keep the bark on it. And keeping the bark is the main thing that we're trying to accomplish here, which is why I used the butcher paper instead of the tin foil. So we'll pull it out and take a look at it. Alright, so after this, we're just going to turn our Z-Grill to shutdown cycle and burn out all the stuff. And yeah, we're just going to leave this covered as we set it into the cooler for the 2 hours, and that's it. Now with the coolers, I just use one of these old Igloo coolers that I got laying around. Just something that keeps it insulated, something that keeps the heat in there. But I mean, you can use whatever. You can use your Yeti, you can use your Coleman. It doesn't matter. As long as it's insulated and keeps the heat in there, that's all that matters. Alright, here we are with the final product. Just took it out of the cooler, so we're going to unwrap it. We're going to discard the butcher paper and we're going to cut it open and see how it looks. Very, very juicy. Alright, so this is the top where our fat cap is. I'm just going to toss this away real quick. Alright, so we're just going to flip it over so that the fat cap is on the bottom. Looks like the bark still nice and hard, exactly what we were looking for. You can kind of see here there is a little bit of fat that didn't render. It isn't a bad thing, but not exactly what we were looking for. So I'm going to start cutting it on this side here. I'm going to work my way over. Yeah, that bark is awesome. Alright. What I like to do is I like to cut it in about 1/2 inch strips. So here we go. Let's cut this piece. Oh yeah, exactly what we were looking for. So as you can kind of see here, we got our smoke ring that goes around. A little bit of fat on the bottom. It's okay. It'll give it some flavor, and it's still nice and wet. Just falls right apart. Doesn't get much better than that. That's good stuff. Alright. So what I like to do with the 1/2 inch strips, just keep cutting. And once they start getting to about this size, I do like to cut them in half. So I cut against the grain, always. It's always best to cut against the grain, not with the grain. So just keep on slicing it. Oh, that's a little bit bigger piece. But as you can see, I'll rotate this around. Here we got our smoke ring from where it sat there for the 8 hours smoking. And that's it. After this, I normally serve it with a few different barbecue sauces. But the flavor is so amazing with this thing. Highly recommend that Pit Boss Competition Blend seasoning. But for now, that's going to do it. How to make a whole packer brisket in our Z-Grill. Thanks for tuning in.